morning, it's Kirby
and Dana
from KJF-TravelAdventures, and we're on day 9 of our 12-day Colorado road trip. And today we're visiting another national park. It's Mesa Verde and Green Table. Let's go. This is the original road into the park. Oh, heck no. Dana just said that's scarier than $1 Million Highway. We're at the Spruce Tree Lookout area where the park headquarters are. There were restrooms with a bottle refill, and there's a little lookout. So this is a museum that was built in the Pueblo restoration style so that it fits in with the surrounding area. Look at Dana go. I'm not walking back up that, so I'm not going down. Alright, we're officially at Cliff Palace, which is where our tour is. They released the tickets at like 8 a.m. 2 weeks in advance. And I was on at what was 10 a.m. because it was Eastern time. By 10 a.m. and 11 seconds, the only tour I could get for the three of us was at 11:30. And then when I refreshed after I booked my tour, the rest were sold out. There's like 4 or 5 options a day, 45 people max. And I think Cliff Palace is the more popular one because Balcony House, which is the other tour you can do, involves a more strenuous hike and also like climbing through a tunnel, which was a oh heck no for me and the rest of us. So just if you're looking to come, make sure you have that on your calendar and you have fast fingers, and good luck. That's where we're going. You also have to have your hands completely free because there's some ladder climbing and some uneven steps. So I have the GoPro on a little clip that goes on my backpack.
After you get your ticket checked, you just continue down a bunch of stone steps. In all, it's probably about 100 steps, and you'll come to a level shelf, and you just walk along that shelf. You'll come to a ladder that's about 10 feet. Ladder's very sturdy. It's very well connected to the rocks. So you just climb up the ladder. Those top rooms up there, that's probably all storage. Why did they settle here? So I always like to just start out with a couple of questions. How many people live where they live because of their job? Okay. And how many people live where they live because that's where they were raised, that's where their family is, that's where everybody they kind of know is? All right, so the ancient Puebloans were kind of the same way. When they first moved here, they settled because they became dry farmers. And kivas were primarily for ceremonies, for sacred rituals, their historical stories and their sort of origins of their myth of creation stories. Basically, it's kind of a longer way of saying that the Cayubas were to build communities. And then one of the animals that they domesticated was turkey. They domesticated turkeys and dogs. And the turkeys, we think, were originally domesticated for their feathers. They make feather blankets, just like we make down comforters. Feathers are very warm, particularly given how light they are. But eventually it looks like they started eating the turkeys. Circle with a little cutout in one between two of these pilasters. That's what we call the pillars that don't come all the way to the top. The reason the pillars don't come all the way to the top is because the roof would be thick. Room size is only about 8 feet by 6 feet by 5.5 feet high. They really don't have windows. You have some small windows that you can see in some of these rooms, but these bigger things that look like windows are really doors. That is sort of to the north of where the fire pit is. That's called a sipapu. The Puebloans believe that they, as a race of people, came up from the earth. So the sipapu is just a connection to the underworld, a reminder of where they came from. Doesn't really serve any practical purpose. So you're going to climb out on some stone steps that kind of are in a wide crack between a couple of big rocks. And then there's 3 ladders. They're not very long. They're like 6 to 10 feet with a short landing between them. And you climb out those ladders and you're back on the top.
Tell me about your Cliff Palace tour experience.
Absolutely amazing. I was a sociology major and I probably should have been an anthropology major. I took so many classes and it was just amazing. It's so cool to stand somewhere where people stood in 1200.
Yeah, and there's so much information on the ranger-led tour. They stop and talk and give you information.
Even the guided tour, there are rangers there. You could ask questions too.
It's just not like a narrated portion in the guided or the assisted one.
It's a little scary going down.
It is quite, you need to be very mobile to get in and out, and I have some time-lapse footage so you can make determinations of whether you can do it yourself or not. Let's go.
I just wanted to say that little kids who can't respect the rules probably shouldn't be on this tour. Adults who act like little kids who can't respect the rules probably shouldn't be on this tour. Besides that, Terry Kahn was our guide and he was amazing.
The tour that was leaving before us when we were hanging around had their tour guide was native, like Puebloan, like who were the people that lived there, which I think was really cool as well.
Yeah, that was really, really cool. I did officially cry, just FYI.
So the very outskirts of the Cliff Palace loop that we're on actually touches Ute reservation land, and there's a small pullout with a little gift shop run by the Ute people with some food that we're going to try. So let's go check it out. Alright, so we officially finished the Cliff Palace loop, and now we are driving along the Mesa Top loop, wow, after a stop for some PB&J and honey sandwiches that we packed ourselves, and of course that delicious fry bread. Mesa Top Loop actually contains the earlier living dwellings of the Puebloan people. So these pit houses were around before they moved into the cliff dwellings, and the first one that we stopped at is over 1,400 years old. Our GuideAlong app said that most of the Puebloan people wouldn't have lived in the cliff dwellings, but they would have lived in these pit houses closer to their crops on the top of the mesa table.
When it was first excavated in 1915, archaeologists did not find any household artifacts or trash middens at the Sun Temple, suggesting that it was purely a ceremonial site, and most likely an astronomical observatory. Some features of the site are thought to align with the sun and moon at various times of year. Recent research has shown that the site was constructed using the same geometric precision found in ancient sites in Greece and Egypt. Now very little is definitively known about its function, but with its 4-foot-thick walls and distinctive D shape, it's the only ancestral Puebloan building of its kind.
So all the way across, that's Cliff Palace. That's where we were when we did that tour. We're officially done in Mesa Verde, and we're now walking around historic downtown Durango. Durango Welcome Center on the corner of 8th and Main has free public restrooms and a water bottle refill. Just check the hours to make sure it's open when you're here. thoughts on Mesa Verde and then the little town of Durango?
I loved Mesa Verde. I believe that I heard maybe, that Mesa Verde was the first national park, started as a monument, that was dedicated to studying people and how societies worked.
And preserving
that instead of like
culture versus animals, which is what a lot were
nature.
Yeah, I think GuideAlong said that. I think that was in the GuideAlong.
I also watched Ken Burns.
Or you told me that, or GuideAlong said it, because I also was going to mention that. So.
Yeah, and I thought it was really cool. I was moved, but I also got angry at people who didn't respect it. I sort of said that already.
Yeah.
But just FYI.
Yeah, I mean,
be respectful. It's even if you don't think of this as it's yours. Personally, I think it's all of ours, but if you don't think of it as yours, it's not nice to touch other people's things.
Yeah, listen to the guides, follow directions, read the signs, and follow the signs. But it is amazing to me that they built this in the year 1200. That they built these dwellings in cliffs, which is just crazy to me that they had the means and the resources to accomplish that. I mean, it would be difficult to do today.
Our guide said, and so did GuideAlong, people only lived in those cliff dwellings for like 60 years. How much work that was. And they are not 100% sure why people left. Mm-hmm. They're not 100% sure why people moved to the cliff dwellings as compared to the pueblos and the pit houses. It's just amazing.
It's amazing how much we do know, or that we are fairly confident is accurate based on people that didn't have a written history. Mm-hmm. That we've deducted, from the tools they used or the markings or things that we could at least deduce that this is what they did.
A lot of the time stamping of it is they used wooden beams to separate ceilings and floors in the cliff dwellings that are still there. First of all, that blows my mind. And then they could take samples of that wood and age mark it.
Yeah, like carbon dating, but not carbon dating, right?
Yeah.
Where they can say this wood was from around the year 1200 and this wood was from around the year 1250. And we don't see any wood from beyond the year 1280 or 1290, so we deduced that they left around 1300. I mean, it's amazing. They're so cool.
Very, very awesome experience.
Yeah, we highly recommend the GuideAlong app. It's a narrated sort of tour that uses
Gary.
We named him Gary. That follows your GPS, and you download it ahead of time, so you don't have to worry about not having cell phone service. But as you hit certain GPS points, the app comes along and gives you information or history, or you should definitely turn here, or you should do this part of the park first and then come back and do this part. It made the experience so much better. And we couldn't fully, we had to get to the cliff dwelling place to do our tour, so we had to sort of go backwards the way versus what we should have done. But
we had like a backwards history timeline, sort of.
Because the Mesa Verde loop is the older structures, so the pit houses and then the cliff dwelling loop, or the cliff palace loop, is obviously the cliff dwellings and newer, so that if you were doing it, they recommended to go to the Mesa Verde loop first and then the Cliff Palace loop. But we had to go to Cliff Palace to get to our tour, which was incredible, but very physically strenuous.
Very physically strenuous is exaggeration. It was physically challenging.
Yeah, that's the word.
Especially for us being not used to the elevation. And we're not super physically active humans.
But we did it.
And there were people younger than us on our tour. There were people older than us on our tour. But if you have mobility issues, you would not be able to take this tour. There's stairs and ladders and steep drop-offs.
Yes, you're walking up and down steep, and it's all sort of gravelly, narrow.
It was also narrow. So if, like, we were concerned about the balcony house tour because there's a narrow cave that you have to walk through or crawl through. And our tour guide said that a lot of people who are broad-shouldered have to kind of go through sideways. That sounds
awful,
anxiety producing for me. But even this cliff house walk had some pretty narrow spots where you had to negotiate that. And if you are a very larger, broad person, it might be even more challenging. So something to think about.
But it was, if you want to do a tour, know when your tickets go on sale and be 100% prepared at exactly when the clock ticks the correct second, because these sold out in under a minute.
Yeah.
So.
And if you decide that you don't have enough maturity to go on this tour, or you don't have the physical ability to go on this tour, give up your spots because people want them.
Yeah. You can see a lot from the roadside pullouts.
And you can learn a lot from the rangers and the visitor centers and the signage. So there's still a lot to see even if you can't go on this physical tour.
It was fantastic.
Yeah. It was so cool.
Yeah. And then, anything else about Mesa Verde?
Nope.
And then we went into little historic Durango. I got this hat. And walked around. We walked around the Statler?
Stratler?
I don't remember.
It's a historic hotel. One of the originals of the town of Durango. Yeah. So it's been there as long as the train has been there or something. Yeah. We did not do the Durango train. The Durango train goes to Silverton.
Yes.
And back. We didn't get to do that, so maybe next time.
Yeah, we'll have to do a train thing on our next trip.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right, I'm Kirby.
I'm Dana.
From KJF-TravelAdventures. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you get notified when all of our new videos drop.
Bye.
Bye.